Hi guys. In this video, I'm going to explain how to calculate the equilibrium level of income using this multiplier approach, right? Because I assume that you guys already know how to calculate the equilibrium level of income using this one, where you just say the equilibrium income equals to the multiplier times all the component of autonomous aggregate expenditure, right? But I didn't explain this one, right? In that video, chapter 18, I didn't explain this one. I didn't do an activity based on this one, right? And that is what I'm going to do now. But before I do that, I'm just going to like go take you guys back to chapter 17 so that you guys can remember or so that you guys can see where we get this this formula from, right? Because here they're saying that if you're using the multiplier approach and you are trying to calculate equilibrium income, you can say a change in income equals to um, the multiplier times a change in any component of aggregate expenditure, right? And then after that, the answer that you get, you're gonna say now the equilibrium income, the new one that you're calculating for, is equal to the old equilibrium income plus the change in your income. Then you're gonna get the new equilibrium income, right? Yeah, that is confusing. Even I don't understand myself. But let me just like take you guys back and then we're gonna come back here. Then we're gonna do like that equation based on this so that you guys can see. So let's just okay, remember when we were doing this chapter 17, we said that spending multiplier is a change in equilibrium real GDP as a result of a change in autonomous spending, right? This um where I said we can write this as like this. We can say it's a change in equilibrium real GDP. So I'm just gonna say equilibrium real G. I'm gonna yeah, equilibrium real GDP divided by a change in what? In autonomous spending. So in AS, right? And then you're gonna get equals to the multiplier, right? Alpha for multiplying, right? And then your equilibrium real GDP, we know that at equilibrium, when we're here, right, this is our 45-degree line, right? Where now we said we would see any point along the 45-degree line, it means that the 45-degree line is basically showing us all the possible equilibrium points. So whenever our real GDP is at equilibrium, it basically means we are at this point here where our income, Y for income, is the same as our aggregate expenditure, right? So we can replace this by what? By just saying that it's a change in Y. This is Y over a change in any component of what? Of autonomous of A is. Then you will get what? You will get the multiplier. Right. We can write this like this. And also here they're saying that it measures how much income is generated by an increase in autonomous spending. So we can just say it's a change in Y divided by a change in any component of aggregate expenditure. I'm saying any component because now we are looking at the four sector model, right? And autonomous aggregate expenditure is not just because here in chapter 17, we only had investment, right? As which was autonomous. But now because we're in chapter 18, the autonomous components have increased. It's no longer just investment, but it's investment, it's autonomous consumption, it's autonomous what else? Export, autonomous import, which are subtracted, and as well as what autonomous government expenditure, right? So it's a change in income divided by a change in all in it, not all of them, but the one that is being asked in that question, right? It's gonna be a change in that autonomous component equals to the multiplier, right? Okay, if you still don't understand, that's okay. For now, just know this equation here. See, to calculate the multiplier, you can also say a change in income over a change in any component of aggregate expenditure, right? Okay, we are going to do one question from this one, and then so that when you go to that question in chapter 18, you now know where that formula came from and how to apply it, right? For now, just know that to calculate the multiplier, you can say a change in income divided by a change in any component of aggregate expenditure, right? Okay, so let's go. We're gonna do this question here. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna to charge me. Okay, so we're going to do this question here, right? Just the last one. We're going to assume that we've already done number one and two and three and four and five. Okay, so number one is saying that calculate equilibrium level of income, and then they calculated for us is 2,500. So let me just write here. Bam, bam, bam. Okay, we're just gonna use the space here. Okay, so the equilibrium level of income is this one. They've already calculated for us. And then um, we're also going to need the multiplier for this. So the multiplier is 5, right? Let's just assume we've calculated all of this. So the multiplier is equal to 5. Right. And then now we're going to do this question. They're saying that suppose if you don't know how to calculate the equilibrium level of income and the multiplier, you can go back and watch this video, right? This video, because I did do these questions. So they're saying that suppose the level or that video is titled the simple Keynesian model, I think, not if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so they're saying, yeah, suppose the level of output that create full employment in the economy is 3,000. Using the multiplier, determine the level of investment spending that will create full employment in the economy. Right. Okay, so right now you know that another formula that you can use to calculate multiplier, you can just say a change in income over a change in autonomous spending, right? Any component of aggregate expenditure that is autonomous, AS, okay, my my A, but yeah, that's A, guys, equals to the multiplier, right? Equals to the multiplier. And then, so they say now, suppose the level, okay, with this information that we have, with this income and this multiplier here, and also, I just don't want to confuse you guys. Let's just go. Let's go here. You see here, they're saying that consider an economy whose consumption function can be written as. So we are told the consumption function is this one, right? Which is this one is autonomous consumption plus induced, and then our investment. Also, we know our investment is autonomous is 300, right? And you know that when we're drawing our graph like this, right? Here at the bottom we have Y. This Y represents total production or income. Then here we have what? Aggregate expenditure, right? Or total spending. Then here we have our 45-degree line where your A is equals to to y, right? Because at any point that is there along the 45-degree line, your aggregate expenditure will be equal to your income. Then we have now this aggregate expenditure curve, right, which consists of C for consumption plus, remember in this chapter we're looking at the two-sector model. So that's why this one is just going to consist of C plus I, right? And you know that here, because when income is zero, your graph starts here because of these autonomous components, right? Because of this autonomous consumer and this autonomous investment. So if you add them, you say 300 plus 200, you're going to get 500. So the graph is going to start here at 500, right? So this is the graph that we have so far. And then the income here is 2,500. Remember that income that they've already calculated it for us. This income here, 2,500, right? So the equilibrium income here is what is 2,500. 500. So this is what we have. So let me just take this and then I'm gonna draw it that side where we are we're doing our calculations, right? Oh, I can just like I think I can just do this. Okay, so this is the graph that we have so far. And then now what they're saying is that suppose the level of output that create full employment in the economy is what? Is 3,000. So if they're saying output, just know this is total output, which is the same as income. So they're referring to Y, right? So the income or the output that will create full employment is what? Is 3,000, meaning that our our curve is like this, right? At the moment, it's like this. And then you have this. And here, our income is currently at what? At 2,500. I'm just going to write 25. Okay, let me just include the zeros. And then now they're saying that now the total output that will create full employment. You know that at full employment, it's where your aggregate expenditure is equals to what? Is equals to your income. So now they're just referring to the new equilibrium point. So the new equilibrium point that we have, okay, in our graph here is starting at 500. So now the new equilibrium point that we have is somewhere here, where our income or total production is now what? Is now 3,000. Right, so let me just say 3. This thing, it looks very untidy, but I just hope you guys are going to see what I'm trying to do here. So now it's 3,000, right? And then they want us now to determine the level of investment that would create full employment. So we just need this change now. To create full employment, how much must be, what level of investment spending will create what full employment, right? So we have to, because investment is autonomous, so from this 500, we have to add something to get the figure that will be here, that will create this full employment of what? Of 3,000, right? And by using this formula here, you know that to calculate the multiplier, you say a change in income divided by a change in any component of aggregate expenditure, right? And then in this case, we have a change in income because our income is going to go from 2,500 to 3,000, right? So you just say 3,000 minus 2,500 minus 2,500, and you would get what? 500. So the change in Y is what? Is 500. Is 500, right? Divided by the change in this case, our autonomous aggregate expenditure, the component that they're referring to is investment, right? And we know that investment is autonomous. So we do not know that figure. We're not given. So I'm just gonna write x, and then equals to the multiplier. The multiplier is 5, right? They already calculated it for us. So 5. So now to get this x, you just say divided by 1, and then you just cross multiply. So if you say 500 divided by 1 times 1, it's going to be 500. And then equals to, then if you say x multiply by 5, it's going to be 5, times 5 times x, yo. Okay. Going to be 5 times, yo. 5 times x, and then if you say 5 times x, it's going to be 5x. So it's going to be 5x equals to 500. And then you just multiply, you just divide by 5 on both sides, right? Divide by 5 divided by 5, and then your x is going to be equals to 100, right? So the change in investment is what is 100. So initially our investment was sitting at, let's check. It was autonomous investment is 300. And now it has changed by 100. So we're just gonna say 100 plus 300 to see how much it is now, and then we're gonna get 400. So the investment spending that will create full employment is what is 400. So here it's 400, right? For the investment spending that will create full employment. But then here in our graph now, it's no longer gonna start here. It's no longer going to be 500 because our investment has increased by 100. It means now it's gonna shift upward, right? So our autonomous component now are increasing because investment is now 400. So we're going to say 400, 400 for investment plus 200 for autonomous consumption, right? So if you say 200 plus 400, you're going to get what? 600. So we have 600 here because our autonomous component increased, and they increased by how much? By hundreds. This is hundreds. Because you say 600 plus 500, you get this 100 here, right? And then in chapter 18, we still see this formula is still the same, but now it's no longer looks like this, but it's look like this because I'm gonna show you how it looks like. Okay, it looks like this. It looks like this, right? Where now a change in income is equal to multiplier times a change in any component, right, of in any autonomous component of aggregate expenditure, right? So this is because this is what they've done. It's exactly the same thing that we did here, but then they say now, let's assume that because we are in chapter 18, we're trying to calculate what equilibrium income, right? So this is what we want. So they're saying that they just said this divided by 1, and then a change in income times 1, you're going to get a change in Y. A change in Y equals to multiplier times a change in aggregate expenditure, right? Autonomous aggregate expenditure. So it's going to be multiplier times a change in what? In aggregate expenditure, right? In any component of aggregate expenditure, in any autonomous, that debt for autonomous. You see, this is the same with this one, here, with this one. Can you see that? So this is where they took it from, right? Oh, guys, I hope I didn't confuse you guys. Please just take your time and try to understand this. Yeah. But actually, I just wanted to show you where this thing here, where it came from, right? Because remember, you see here, we also did the same thing here. We said, it's okay, we had 500 divided by X because we were looking for autonomous investment. Then we said equals to 5, which is the multiplier. Then we divided by 1. Then the formula now looks like this, right? It's like this now. And then when it's like this, okay, we then calculate, we found, it's okay, our X is 100. So now after we have our X, we're just going to take the 300, which is old investment, we're going to add by the change to get the new investment, right? Same thing here. After you've calculated your change in income, you're going to take your old equilibrium income, you're going to add your change in income that you got here, you're going to get your new equilibrium income, right? Okay, let's just do an activity based on this one so you can see now how to apply this formula. We're looking at two-sector model because that question is in chapter 17. But now we're going to be looking at the four-sector model. Let me see something. Okay. Also, in this question, do we have to do like everything, or we just do 4.3? Okay, let's just do all the questions. 4.1, they're saying that calculates the equilibrium income for Mahe and illustrate your answer graphically. So to calculate your equilibrium income, okay, it didn't tell us which approach we're using, so let's just use the multiplier approach because it is more simple. So we're just going to say equilibrium income for Y is equals to, we just say the multiplier times all the autonomous component of what? Of aggregate expenditure, right? These are brackets. Right, and then to get the multiplier, we're just gonna say y divided by I'm gonna use this formula which says y divided by 1 minus c in a two-sector model, and then it's gonna be 1. These are brackets, and it's gonna be okay. Let me do this. It's going to be 1 minus small letter c two-sector model times 1 minus t three-sector model because we've introduced tization, and then plus four-sector model M for input, small letter M. Right, so that's how you calculate the multiply in the four-sector model. And then so now we're going to just say, don't forget to use the BODMAS rule. I'm just going to write everything here. So the C is 0.8, 0.8. 1 minus t tax rate is 20%, which is 0.2, plus M, marginal prosperity to import is 0.14, right? Because remember here we have autonomous export plus M times Y. So our M is 0.14, so 0.14, and I'm getting 2. The multiplier is equal to what? To 2. So our multiplier is equal to 2. Okay, let me just write it here. 2. And then now we have to calculate the autonomous components. So we're just gonna add autonomous consumption, autonomous investment, autonomous government spending, autonomous export, and minus autonomous imports. So we're just gonna say 100 plus 100 plus 150 plus 200 minus 50. I'm getting 500. So 500 here. Then we're gonna say 2 times 500. So now your equilibrium income is 2 times 500, which is 1,000. So 1, 2, 3. So your equilibrium income is what? Is 1,000. And also our multiplier is what? Is 2. So it's 2. And then now they say, suppose the government spending increase 2. So government expenditure is also autonomous, right? And we have this G dash, right? This one, it's D dash. It's autonomous, remember? And then it increased to 2,500. So at the moment, our graph looks like this, right? At the moment, it looks like this. Have your 45-degree line where your A equals to Y. A is equals to Y, aggregate expenditure is equal to income. And then we have this aggregate expenditure curve where A is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus I. Sorry, plus X minus Z. And then here, obviously, because our graph does never it will never start at the origin because we have these autonomous components, right? And we calculated them and we found out they are equal to 500. So our graph is going to start here at 500. It's 500. And then this is our Y, income or total production. And here we have our aggregate AS, aggregate spending. And then here at equilibrium, our income, we had said it was 1,000. So we have 1,000 here. 1, 2, 3, right? And then they say now the government spending increased to 250. So from 150, it increased to what? To 250. Calculate the new equilibrium income. So the one to calculate the new equilibrium income. So obviously, if one component of autonomous aggregate expenditure increases, our graph is also going to increase because it means that now our graph will no longer start here. It's going to start somewhere here because one of the components of autonomous aggregate expenditure has increased from 150 to 250, right? So our graph is now going to start somewhere here, right? And then, okay, let me just use a different color. So it's going to start somewhere here. And this would be our new equilibrium, right? And then they're saying that the government is going to increase to 250. So what is the increase from 250, from 150 to 250? What was the increase? So you just say 250 minus 150. So you can see that it increased by what? By hundreds, right? So our autonomous components are going to increase by 100. So 500 plus 100 is what? Is 600. So they're going to increase to what? To 600, right? That is 6. This is 600, guys. So now what you have to do, okay, so the change here, the change is what? Is hundreds. The change is hundreds. And then they want us to calculate this. So this is our X, right? The new equilibrium income. And we do not have this new equilibrium income. But then we know the formula that we can use, which is what? Which is a change, to get a change in income, we can say is equal to the multiplier times a change in any component of aggregate expenditure. In this case, the component that changed was G. So in any change in what? In government. In the change, sorry, it's the multiplier times the change in autonomous government expenditure, right? Because it's the component that changed, right? From 150 to 250. So now we're just going to substitute. So our change in income is what we're looking for. And then equals to, no, we're looking for equilibrium income. But to get the equilibrium income, we will firstly want to calculate the change in income, right? So our multiplier, we calculated it, it's 2. Can you guys see here? Let me just write here. The multiplier is 2 times a change in government was, it went from 150 to 250, so the change was hundreds. So it's going to be hundreds, right? So if you say 2 times 100, you're going to get 200. So the change in Y is what? Is 200, right? Is 200, meaning that if you say this amount which is here minus this 1,000, you're going to get 200. So obviously now to go back to move forward, it means you say this 1,000 plus this change, which is 200, you're going to get this one, right? Because the second step of the equation is that now you take this change here, you say, now you're going to say, to get your equilibrium income, your Y star or Y0, you just say equals to, now you take your Y old and then you add what? The change in Y. The change in Y. Right. So our Y old is 1,000. 1, 2, 3 plus the change in y is 200, right? Because we calculated it. So plus 200. So our new equilibrium income is 1,000 plus 200, which is 1,200, right? So our new equilibrium income, the one that is here, is 1,200. Right. And if you say this minus this, you're going to get 200, which is a change. So our answer is correct. Right. Yeah, guys, that's just it for this video. And yeah, I'm done. And I hope you guys did understand. Yeah, that's just my wish. I hope you guys understood.